Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of County Chatter. I'm your host, Helen Chatel, and here with me today is Erika Woods. Erika, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I am the Deputy Director of the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment, and I have been chair of the Cape Cod Hoarding Resource Network for 10 years, formerly known as the Cape Cod Hoarding Task Force.
Wow, 10 years.
Yes.
I bet you have some stories to tell.
Yeah, there's a few. There's a few.
So how does the networking group collaborate with various entities to address hoarding cases in the community?
We focus on education, collaboration, and support. So the education piece is for service providers, mental health individuals, or anyone who is involved with individuals who are struggling with hoarding, or for the individuals and families themselves. Collaboration, we work with different entities and organizations to troubleshoot and talk through cases to see if we can help them bring them to a resolution and assist individuals, and support for anybody who is struggling.
Great. Can you give us a bit of an overview on the Cape Cod Hoarding Resource Network's mission and primary objective?
Absolutely. Hoarding is one of those things where there's no single entity that can address it. You have an individual who has a large amount of items in their home that need to be discarded, but the hoarding itself is a mental process that these individuals struggle with. And so what we're trying to do is bring education to individuals who are struggling, education to the professionals that might be coming across these individuals, that might be a health agent, that might be fire department, police, etc., just to help them understand that it's not about the stuff, it's about the underlying emotions and feelings that individual attaches to that stuff.
Right. And this is something that, it doesn't, you can see signs earlier. It's not actually always older adults. There's always been.
Correct. It actually, many people don't know that it starts in early teenage years. And, at that point in time, you have your parents that are telling you to clean up your bedroom, and they might be throwing stuff away for you. You go to college, you have a college roommate that, keeps things in check. And then as you get older, you get more freedoms and you start collecting stuff, and it just becomes overwhelming at some point in time.
That's important to realize because, there's so many TV shows and you just, you don't know, if you're just a casual observer and you don't deal with hoarding on a daily basis, you just think this is something that happens when you get old.
Exactly, yeah. And it never is finished in, one episode.
Right.
These can last for years in order for that individual to truly get the help that they need.
Something else, could you explain the difference between hoarding and squalor to help our audience understand the terms better?
Sure. So first of all, hoarding disorder is now its own diagnosis through the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Illness. It's about 10 years old. And the definition of hoarding is the persistent difficulty in discarding or parting with items. And that difficulty is due to a perceived need to hang on to and hold and save those items to the point where areas of the home are cluttered and might not be able to be used. So the individual might not be able to sleep in their own bed or sit on the couch in the living room or even take a shower. Squalor is different in that it's not the inability to discard items. It's more of a self-neglect or apathy where the items don't necessarily mean anything to the individual. They just kind of keep piling up, and usually it's food related or maybe there's bodily fluids involved in that. Occasionally hoarding will tip over to a point where it does become squalor. For instance, somebody might save their Meals on Wheels and the refrigerator gets overpacked and it spills over onto the countertop, and then you have rodents and it just goes from there.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know there was a...
There is a big difference, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Thank you. That's that was educational for me right there.
Well,
so,
good.
great.
I'm glad. I've done my job.
You can go home now.
That's right.
What are some misconceptions about hoarding, and how does the Cape Cod Hoarding Resource Network address them?
So misconceptions, I think, is people assume that individuals struggling with this are slobs or lazy, or they just don't care, where it's really an inability for that individual to part with those items. So, for instance, you might have a coffee cup that's got a broken handle, and geez, I used to have tea with my grandmother, and if I throw this away, I'm throwing away my grandmother, and it means I don't love her. And so it's really not about the item itself, it's about the feelings that are attached to that item.
As opposed to holding onto a pair of jeans, hoping that you're going to get into
Get
that
back
size.
into exactly, yes.
Can you elaborate on the statistics related to hoarding, such as its prevalence in the population in the typical age of onset?
That sounds good. So it affects actually 2 to 5, and I've heard of upwards of 6% of the population. So that's more than than individuals affected by Alzheimer's. It does start early, around the age of 13, whereas individuals tend not to look for assistance until they're at least in their 50s, if not older. Quite often, 92% of individuals with hoarding disorder struggle with another co-occurring mental illness, such as anxiety or depression. Depression is very common. And I lost my train of thought.
Wow. So it's part of a more broad part of mental illness.
Yes. It's like I said, it's often associated or have other co-occurring illnesses with it, which that's one of the issues too, is trying to take care of the whole person. So if they're struggling with anxiety and depression, we want to make sure that they're going to get help for that first, and then we'll address the hoarding itself.
So it's just not simply removing all the items that they've hoarded. It's it's essential for individuals struggling with hoarding to seek behavioral health treatment. And what are the challenges that they may face during these cleanouts?
So first of all, cleanouts are definitely not recommended. It really can be detrimental to an individual to have somebody come in and oftentimes what people think is, well, we'll just clean it out and that'll give them a good start and go from there. But unfortunately, if you think about it, somebody coming into your own home and deciding what you can keep and what you can discard and just taking care of it, I mean, you feel violated at that point.
Right.
And then individuals who do have cleanouts, there is a near 100% recidivism rate. So as soon as that individual goes back into their home, they start collecting again. But at that point in time, they're no longer going to want to ask for help because somebody has already come in and thrown away all their stuff. So they don't want to do that again.
So it's kind of like a betrayal.
It is.
Of their trust. And
absolutely. Yeah. It's very hard on individuals. It can shift them into a severe state of depression, and there have been cases where individuals have committed suicide after a clean out.
Wow. What role does education play in your organization's efforts, and how do you provide access to resources for those affected by hoarding?
So first of all, I will say that we've been on kind of a hiatus through COVID. Being at the Barnstable County, our focus shifted to COVID for a number of years, and of course not being able to be in person. So we're kind of doing a reboot, and we're going to start rolling out some events, and one of them is going to be an open forum that we're going to do virtually, where we'll invite everybody back to the table who was with us before. And generally what we would do is have training events. We've done, indoor air quality trainings, personal protective equipment trainings, laws, and any regulatory events that might go towards hoarding. So also in these forums, we have just open discussion of cases. We would never use any type of descriptors so anybody could know who we're dealing with. No addresses, no names. But being able to talk through the actual situation, what resources are available in a certain situation, and just brainstorm on how we might be able to help the individual is very, very helpful.
I would imagine so, and it's good to protect the individuals.
Absolutely, absolutely. The individuals that I've worked with are very, very intelligent. They're very creative. They are very caring, and a lot of that is the reason why they hang on to these items. Right. A lot of them, they want to make sure that they go to a good home. You don't want to just throw it in the landfill, being very protective of the environment, et cetera.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
Tell us more about Buried in Treasure program and the grant for the pilot program. How does these initiatives help individuals deal with hoarding issues?
Okay. So Buried in Treasures is based on the book Buried in Treasures by Tolan, Steckity, and Frost. And the book itself is a self-help book. So theoretically, somebody could buy that book and go through it on their own. It starts off with what is hoarding, and it gives some exercises for the individual to go through. Do I have hoarding? Do I have a problem with acquiring items? And then it goes through some of the reasonings why people struggle. It's just not a priority, or they have unhelpful beliefs about the item. I can't discard this cup because I'm throwing away my grandmother. And then it goes through, ways of reframing things or skill building on how to actually address the issues in the home. And if you think about it, I think about when I clean my basement, you go down there and you just look at everything and you're just overwhelmed. So you turn around and you go right back upstairs. These individuals, that's what's happening to them when they go back to their home. They don't know where to start. So one of the things that we're doing, and we got a very small grant from Cape Cod Healthcare Foundation to offer a stipend. We're reaching out to our Medical Reserve Corps volunteers to train them in sorting and discarding and coaching. So individuals who sign up for our Buried in Treasures groups, we have 3 of them coming up, one in Eastham, one in Dennis, and one in Bourne. And once individuals get through the first few meetings, if they are interested, we will offer them services where we will have coaches go in and sit with the individuals. It's not cleaning.
Yep.
It's just sitting down and talking through, where would you like to start? What is your goal for this? It could be a woman who wants to have her granddaughter over.
Sure.
It could be, geez, I used to play cards with my friends, but now I'm ashamed to invite them over, so I want to focus on the kitchen table or something like that. But it's helping the individual to step back and break it down into more manageable pieces.
That's fantastic. And
Yeah.
a friend and I were talking. She wants to clean out her basement, as you mentioned, but she's like, if I had a friend just come over just to chit chat while you're doing it, she's like, I know what needs to be done.
Exactly.
She's like, it's not that I can't do it all on my own. And she's like, it's just companionship, and I can see that through the program. It's
motivation.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody else to hold you accountable.
Exactly. And to be that support when you need that cheerleader or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, when you paint a room, it's better to do it with somebody else because, otherwise you're going to find a million reasons not to paint that room. But
exactly.
You invite a friend over, then you have a goal at the end. Oh, let's go for coffee after we paint this room. And
Exactly. And that's part of the buried in treasures concept too is, okay, this is what you need to do, but let's also find a reward for you when you're done with it. Let's see what, some way that you could celebrate your winning.
I'm all about rewards. I think it's
we all have to do that.
I think positive results are better than, punishment. I think it's
exactly.
I think you get more done.
Exactly.
So
yes.
I appreciate that. How does your organization ensure the effectiveness of its programs, such as landlord and tenant issues?
So one of the things that has come up relatively recently is these issues where a neighbor might complain to a manager of a apartment building, or and they say, oh, it's a mess, or it's bad, it's hoarding. And as we were discussing earlier, the difference between hoarding and squalor, there's a lot of misconceptions on what is hoarding and what isn't it. So what we do is we offer to go in and be that third party assessor who is not on the side of the landlord and not on the side of the tenant, but can give an objective, okay, what's the volume of the materials, and what are the dangers, what are the safety issues that we should be concerned about, and then just kind of give that back to them for them to say, okay, now we're starting from a point where we both see what's going on.
Makes sense, because you don't want somebody accusing somebody of being a hoarder if they're dealing with something else.
Exactly.
So, in each person's opinion of clean and clutter is different. So
it is. I've heard of cases where, an individual really does a great job on the whole unit, and then somebody comes in to do an inspection and says there's too many pillows on the bed. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I can see, like, if somebody was putting a puzzle together and they have things scattered elsewhere in their kitchen table, it's just the puzzle.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So, it depends on what you walk into on that day. It could totally be
absolutely.
innocent, it depends on what it looks like all the time.
Exactly.
So that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So we're almost done, but what would the community expect from upcoming training, community events you mentioned, and how can they get involved?
Okay. So once we start getting back to our forums, the goal is to, again, bring back different service providers, and often individuals from, police, fire, clinicians, social service networks, housing, will attend our meetings just to learn more and get involved. So those in general are for professionals.
Right.
We are rolling out the Buried in Treasures program so that individuals who self-identify as having an issue will have the ability to enroll in those. We're also going to be rolling out some family and friends events where people can come and learn about what hoarding is and what it isn't, and how they might be able to assist their loved one to sort and discard. And then we're hoping to bring in some more certified trainings for individuals who are already in the homes. Maybe there's a home health aide or a chore worker that is already assisting an individual, and if we can give them a couple of these skill building exercises to work with the individual, we're hoping that, we have to piece things together, pulling different resources from different places and try to put them together. Each case is different, and so you're really building a response to that individual.
Yeah, so it's taking a community, building a community.
It is. It's a community
to help
effort.
People. That's fantastic.
Exactly.
So I look forward to hearing more information about events, and hopefully you'll share them with the channel so we can help you publicize that as well. And I want to thank you for coming out. Anything I missed today?
Probably.
Well, then I'll have to have you back.
Yeah, it's once I walk out of here, I'm sure there's going to be those things that I think, oh, I should have said that. But no, I think we covered a good portion of it.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Erika, for coming in today. And that'll conclude our episode of County Chatter for today.